Hello, YouTube. The island of San Borondon is probably the most intriguing one to all inhabitants of the Canary Islands. Its legend is part of the local culture, and the quest for it is a never ending story. Even today, with all the new technology available to us. For ages, the island was called, described, referred to in many tales, ballads, poems, and folkloric songs. The mysterious one, the lost one, the unreachable one. Based on those persistent rumors, many expeditions were initiated from the 15th till the 18th century. I believe the most famous one was in 1721 under Juan de Muri Aguirre, an admiral, and a number of naval maps were drawn. Now let me explore this with the Russian information about this evasive piece of real estate, and I will refer to it as San Borondon, as San Borondon's Isle, interchangeable. I don't think it makes a difference. The most famous photo of the mysterious island west of the Canaries was taken in 1957 by M.R. Quintero. The mystical place it was where Plato placed Atlantis is known as San Borondon, Saint Borondon's Island. In the 6th century, monk Brandon went west in search of paradise. Beyond the Canaries, he found himself in a cycle of ghostly islands where the sun rose from different directions. Brandon and his companions were lost for 15 days, but upon returning from the islands, they learned that a year had passed during this time. It reminds me, by the way, of the Russian legends of the Belovodье, the White Waters, referring to Shambhala and people who embarked on the quest and how time passed differently there and back home. Anyway, the island was depicted on maps throughout the Middle Ages. Its repeated appearances on the horizon are attested to. Hundreds of expeditions were sent to it. Occasionally, it was possible to land on it, but it was not possible to return to it again. Locals consider it to be Atlantis, existing in another dimension and sometimes appearing in ours. But ghost islands are also known in Russia, in particular the Sannikov Land and Andreev Island, whose appearance is difficult to explain by mirage, and whose disappearance is difficult to explain by melting glaciers. But back to 1957. So it took place on the island of La Palma, Canary Islands. Quintero took the photo. It is still the most famous and iconic. To avoid being accused of editing, he asked the children splashing in the sea, "Do you see this too?" The children were then interviewed more than once by various commissions. The photographer decided that he was seeing the mysterious island of Saint Borondon, San Borondon. Some have even been there, and they say, heaven and earth, neither give nor take. But in reality, there is nothing there in the sea, beyond the horizon. A large study, I think more like an essay, was published not long ago to put an end to this issue. The island of La Palma is the westernmost island of the Canary Islands. Even further west, there is only the ocean and the ghostly San Borondon. Somewhere there, Plato placed his Atlantis. The Greeks sometimes went to those places and complained that it was impossible to sail or swim. Everything was covered in mud as if it were aground. In the 6th century, the monk Brandon went west to find paradise. Beyond the Canaries, he found himself in a cycle of the ghostly islands, again, from which he could not get out. The sun rose here and there. It seemed to the monks that they have been wandering around. And when they came back to the ship waiting for them on the open sea, they were told that a year had passed. I want to emphasize this. It's very interesting, and not only for this island, but for other episodes in the recent history of our planet. So they gave the names to the islands: Sheep Island, Bird Paradise, Grape Island. They came across an erupting volcano and some kind of crystal pillar. One day, by the way, when we speak about crystal pillar, and somehow I think about those monuments that come from nowhere and are placed in the deserts and other places of our planet recently. That's just an idea. One day they were praying and realized that the island was sinking. They rushed onto the ship and realized that the island was the back of a colossal whale. Of course, this is just a legend. Nobody knows how much truth there is in it and what kind. But the mysterious island has since been called by the name of the monk. The island was depicted on maps throughout the Middle Ages. Columbus believed in it. A certain captain informed King Henry of Portugal that he had almost landed on the shore, but the ship was being thrown off the rocks by the waves. The king ordered him to return, so the captain sailed away and was never seen again. In 1723, the island appeared on the horizon, and local priests decided to remotely exorcise evil spirits from there, since it was impossible to swim there. Mass was celebrated right on the shore and sprinkled in the direction of the mirage. It is not even worth listening to all the expeditions that were sent to search for this island. It's not even worth to list them all. There were hundreds of them. Expeditions were equipped by both governments and private companies. Most often sailors, seeing land on the horizon, began to row towards it, but found only emptiness and waves. However, there is other evidence. It was possible to land on the ghostly island, and it really is paradise, according to descriptions. The sailors confident that there would now be plenty of food there in the Canaries, because the islands were not very fertile and there was not enough food. Well, they rushed to bring the good news, but it was never possible to return to the mysterious island. Today, the inhabitants of the Canary archipelago both believe and do not believe in San Borondon. In schools, they're told that it is not there. Fishermen selling fish say that they saw it. And so a double real-unreal perception develops. Yet the island is still visible, but less often than before. And although everyone now has smartphones, there are no new photographs. Sometimes something murky appears on the internet, but it doesn't inspire confidence. Today there are 7 explanations, and they all boil down to 3 hypotheses. 1, a mirage, but is not clear what exactly they see. A mirage needs real basis. 2, reflection of the island of La Palma itself, from where the observations is being made onto the clouds. This hypothesis is no better because the geometry of the sun, La Palma, and the direction of the mysterious island, somehow it doesn't add up. 3, the island was volcanic. Perhaps it rose and fell here and there, but in the end it disappeared. In fact, the places there are tectonically active. For example, the point from which the famous photograph of 1957 was taken no longer exists. The volcano destroyed everything there. But the hypothesis that is especially sweet to the people is that this is Atlantis. Only it exists, as it were, in another dimension and sometimes appears in ours. Among the seekers of Atlantis, there are 2 camps. Some believe that Atlantis was the island of Santorini, near Greece. Please see my video on this subject. And the story of the philosopher Plato, who claimed that the island was huge and located in the Atlantic, was inaccurate. Others believe that Atlantis was located exactly where Plato said it would be, that is just west of the Canary Islands, despite the fact that in those places, including Soviet researchers, they found a lot of anomalies. See my video on the subject, please. Geologists are rather against this hypothesis. The legend of San Borondon seems to resolve the contradictions. If it is in another dimension, why do we need geologists? If you believe in other dimensions, of course. But let's look at other places on our globe. The leader in the number of mysterious islands is in Russia, and most all of them are in the Arctic Ocean. And see my videos about the Russian exploration of the Arctic Ocean and strange things you can find there. So which gives a simple, perhaps deceptively simple explanation. They were glaciers, and the most famous is, of course, Sannikov Land, north of the New Siberian Islands. It was from there that the merchant Yakov Sannikov saw it, observed this land in 1810. Baron Toll observed it more than once, and in 1902, on his way there, he disappeared. But Soviet expeditions found nothing there. See, but Sannikov Land was not alone. Andreev Island was noticed, observed near the Kolyma Delta by Sergeant Andreev in 1763. He estimated its size at 80 miles. In 1934, the schooner Peasant reported seeing a small rocky island in the northern Chukchi Sea. Soon after the radiogram was sent, the schooner went missing. The whaler Giles clearly saw rocky shores of Spitsbergen in 1707, which was confirmed much later in 1899 and in the 1920s. This speculation ended. The case was closed only in the 1930s when Soviet aviators couldn't see anything from the air. We have not listed all the ghost islands in the Russian northern waters. But see my videos for more information. Armchair scientists easily put a stamp on this enigma, the mirage, forgetting that they're dealing with the testimony of practitioners who have seen plenty of mirage in their lives. The hypothesis about the glacier is better, but also unconvincing. Who saw how that Sannikov Land melted? What if the people who talk about other dimensions are right? On the internet, sometimes you will come across a story like this. We arrived at the hotel and everything there was somehow strange. Unusual telephone numbers, unusual speeches from the staff, booklets with names of cities we haven't heard of. We got up in the morning, everything was as usual. It is impossible to verify such stories. What if some are genuine? It's just that at sea, such phenomena are easier to notice. There was land in sight. Suddenly it appeared. Suddenly it disappeared. So this is what I wanted to let you know today, and I'll bring you more information on the subject of strange islands and things people see in the open sea. And if you like my research, please support me through the links you will find in description to this video. I'll appreciate it. Please like my video, subscribe to my channel, sponsor it if you want to, or if you can, and please tell others about my research. Thank you for your attention to my work.